I didn't invite my parents to my wedding because they always took my sister's side even when she falsely claimed that my fiancé forced himself on her. My sister, female 28, is the golden child. She could do nothing wrong with my family. She is very beautiful and she got away with everything, even stealing 3 of my boyfriends in the past. I met my fiancé 5 years ago. I was in love with him immediately, and I think so was he. That left me reluctant to introduce him to my family, and sister in particular, because he's her type, rich and good-looking. After a year of secretly dating him, I was running out of excuses as to why I couldn't meet my family. I literally thought, screw it. If she took him, better now than when I've invested more years on this dude. She acted precisely as I expected. She was flirty from the get-go. Except this time my fiancé didn't reciprocate and ignored her. One day my fiancé told me that he was receiving flirty texts from her and even one picture of her in a bra. I confronted her and we had a row in Mom's kitchen. She went upstairs crying, telling me that if she really wanted him, she would have him. My mom kicked me out and told me he's more my sister's age anyway. About 3 years ago, I was out of town for work for 2 weeks. And one evening, my fiancé started a video call on his iPad to show me how he was taking care of my bonsais. He was teasing me, pretending he's killing my plants, when the intercom called. It was my sister, so he buzzed her up. I told him to leave me on call to see what she's up to. She had a very short dress and heels. She came on to him, so I started recording. He told her no multiple times, and she asked him why he chose a loser instead of her. She then tried to kiss him multiple times, telling him to at least try before saying no. He pushed her away eventually, and she stumbled and fell over our glass coffee table. She started screaming, and my boyfriend panicked and called the ambulance. I was terrified. She had injured her thigh and needed stitches all the way up to her waist. My sister pressed charges and claimed that fiancé tried to violate her, unaware that I have recorded the whole interaction. When the truth came out, my fiancé pressed charges for assault and defamation. She didn't get any jail time, but had to pay him a hefty sum, something my parents thought was unfair since they didn't need the money. This ruined my sister and her reputation, so she moved to another city and cut all contacts with everyone, including my parents who took her side all the way. My parents blamed me for ruining her life and bright future, and my mom always lamented her and accused me of taking a stranger's side, purely to take revenge on my sister for being more popular and successful than me. I went low contact after this, almost no contact. My relationship with my fiancé didn't change, but it was strained with my soon-to-be in-laws who thought I have brought drama to them, and that their son was on the verge of losing everything because of me. We have a much better relationship now. It took time for them to trust me again. I'm very close with my soon-to-be mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and father-in-law treats me like I was his daughter. In fact, they're paying for the whole wedding. I never told my parents about me getting engaged or about the wedding. My aunt and 2 cousins are the only ones who are invited from my side of the family. We're having a weekend wedding in Tuscany. My parents are now so indignant that they aren't invited. My mom has been trying to call and text me, but I deleted before even reading. I don't know what to tell her, really. It feels like hate, the thing in my chest, but it can't be possible to hate your own parents. Today my aunt said that my mom is slandering me all over Facebook. It has threatened my aunt by boycotting if she attended. I don't know if I should continue ignoring them or confront them. This is not easy. I don't want it to escalate. Now for the top advice. It is not hateful to remove horrible people from your life, even if they are your primary family. Get a new phone number and or block them. I changed my number about 2 years ago when I got engaged. I don't know who gave them my new number. Can you get a restraining order? I imagine your fiancé has a good cause. Try to think of it this way. Pretend you are 5 years in the future. Will you regret not having your mother, father, and possibly sister at the wedding? There's no way it will go over well. I won't regret it. Not in 20 years. Unfortunately, restraining orders aren't a thing in my country. Not even for husbands who mistreats their wives. Be supportive of your aunt and cousin no matter what their decision. But your parents' intentions for going to your wedding aren't good. They're not to celebrate or support you. The fact that they slander you shows their priority isn't to build bridges with you. You have mended your relationship with your in-laws. Focus on those healthy relationships for your wedding. If you feel the need to message your parent/mother, don't invite them to the wedding. Tell them you're prepared to hear what they're reaching out now, and that you hope they're willing to make their behavior up to you so you can both move forward with improving your relationship for the future. You have nothing to apologize for. They do, especially your mother and sister. Congratulations, and do not let them near your wedding or tear you down. Yes, that's what I told my aunt. That she didn't need to attend if she didn't want to. But my cousins are already decided. I really don't want them in my wedding. I just don't know if I should confront them and tell them to stop or continue ghosting them. Both can lead to drama. Honestly, ghost them. I'm a bit of a petty soul, so I would definitely play up with getting on with your in-laws at all the wedding prepping on social media, because that's going to absolutely get to them. Forgive me for saying, but your mother and sisters seem very obsessed with how they look to others, and seeing you have a great time and being affected by their drama would be the biggest middle finger you could give them. If you're posting on social media about having the support of in-laws and friends to make up for not having support from them, and then they're bad-mouthing you, you won't need to tell them to be quiet, because anything they say will just make them look bad. Trust me, I'm not unaffected. I'm terrified of what could happen, and if it escalates to something like what happened 3 years ago. I'm trying to minimize the problem as much as I can. They mean so little to me to care to take revenge. I just want my anxiety to go away. It seems mighty likely you need to cut ties with anyone that supports your sister, including your parents. Sorry, at least your guy's family likes you. I haven't seen them in over 2 years and we live in the same city. Now for the last story. I have had enough of my stepdaughter, so I moved back to my parents with my son. I'm also 8 weeks pregnant and I don't know what to do. I don't know if this is even ethical because it's about a minor. I will keep it anonymous and hope for the best. I'm at the end of my tether here and I feel paralyzed and in desperate need of advice. I, female 38, met my husband, male 44, about 4 years ago. I'm 8 weeks pregnant. Only husband did I know. I have a son, male 8, with my boyfriend who passed away in a car accident before my son was born. My husband has a daughter, female 13, from a previous marriage. Stepdaughter lives with us every other week. When we got married, ex-wife tried everything to get full custody of stepdaughter and failed. But it was made very clear to me, by stepdaughter, ex-wife, and husband, that I am not her mother and I am not allowed to participate in raising her. Stepdaughter basically ignored me and my son in our weeks. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't hurting anyone directly. My son learned very early not to cross stepdaughter, and kept to himself when she was around. I suspect ex-wife behind stepdaughter's coldness towards me, and thought this must be hard for stepdaughter with all these changes. I tried to befriend her over the years, but she wasn't having it. It got worse when ex-wife remarried and got pregnant with twins 2 years ago. She started ignoring stepdaughter, trying to get my husband to have her more. We happily obliged, and basically stopped being a mother to her. It didn't help either that the new husband didn't like stepdaughter and wasn't shy about not wanting to raise another man's daughter. I asked my husband if we could take stepdaughter full-time and try to raise her, because I saw that her mental health was deteriorating and that she needed stability. The ex-wife blatantly refused the suggestion, so we continued with the every other week. The twins were born about a year ago and all went downhill from there. It seemed like the worse stepdaughter had it at her mom's, the more she hated me and my son. She would throw fits a couple of times every time she's with us. Break our stuff. Call me a witch if I try to tell her off. It's her house because her father bought it and we're just guests. She would yell at my son, and she even hit him a couple of times, telling him to keep to his room if he didn't like her treatment of him. When I told her not to put her hand on my son, she told me, "What are you going to do about it?" My son grew fearful of her and would ask me to take him to Grandpa, boyfriend's father, when she's living with us. I talked to my husband about it. I told him stepdaughter needed professional help because she's not feeling well and she's making us miserable when she's around. So she started to go to therapy, 6 months now. Other than that, my husband didn't know what to do either. If he tried to talk to her about being nice to us, she played innocent and told him she was playing around and hugged and kissed my son in front of him. And if he tried to be stern, she threw a tantrum and accused him of loving my son more than her. 3 months ago, my son's grandpa passed away. This hit my son and me very hard. My son was inconsolable for many weeks and couldn't really understand what it meant that he couldn't see Grandpa again. Grandpa was a carpenter, so his boyfriend. So since a very young age, my son loved hanging with him at the garage working. Many times when he's there, he came home with something they made together. butter knives, boxes, chessboards, and for my 38th birthday last summer, I got a stool that my son designed himself and built with his grandpa and then painted. This was the last project they had together since Grandpa passed away a few weeks later, so the stool was priceless to us. We had it in the kitchen. Stepdaughter made a lot of negative remarks about the stool, how ugly and poorly made it was. She laughed at my son's poor taste, and he was very distraught. This was the first time, however, that my husband got very angry at her and asked her to go to her room. She was so scared of his reaction that she went without any protest. This Christmas, stepdaughter was supposed to be with her mother. On Christmas Eve, her mother dropped her off at our house very early in the morning. Her new husband had decided he didn't want her to go with them to his parents' house, where they usually spent Christmas. Stepdaughter was on the verge of tears, standing there listening to her mother making excuses to my husband and me. My husband hugged stepdaughter the whole time, and I tried to fight away my tears. After her mom left, she went upstairs to her room to sleep. I also went to sleep since we don't usually wake up this early in holidays. My husband went to the gym and later he was going to the train station to bring my parents who were going to celebrate Christmas with us. Around 10 a.m., I heard my son screaming and crying downstairs. I ran down in horror. Stepdaughter had decided to break the stool my son had built with his grandpa, and she was trying to shove it in the fireplace. When she saw me, she smirked and said she didn't want ugly furniture in her house. I pulled her away and told her to go to her room and try to get the pieces of wood out of the fireplace. That was when she threw a scalding hot liquid in my face. It was a hot cocoa. I yelled in pain and my son started panicking, so I ran to him to tell him that I was fine. Stepdaughter stood there laughing. I took my son upstairs and went back to her. I grabbed her hard in her arm and started pulling, pushing, and dragging her up to her room and locked the door. Husband came home with my parents moments later. My mom took me to the emergency room, and my son insisted on coming with me. I had second-degree burn on my cheek and neck. When I went home, my husband was so mad at me for attacking stepdaughter by using force to get her to her room. He told me I should have had compassion knowing how hurt she was by her mother's abandonment. I told him that I had enough of this. I'm living a nightmare half of the time, having to walk in eggshells in my own home whenever she's around. My son is a prisoner in his own room when she's living with us, too terrified to cross a boundary of hers. I told him that I don't know how to handle this, and that it was a mistake from the beginning that I wasn't allowed to be a parental figure in her life with authority. He disagreed and told me that she has a kind heart and needed patience. But the thing is, I don't think she does. She targeted my son's handiwork, fully aware of its sentimental value. In my face, because she always hated the fact that my husband thinks I'm beautiful, it is opened with complimenting my eyes and smile. I didn't stay there for Christmas. I took my son and parents and went to my parents' home where I live now. My husband is in panic mode. He's been texting and calling me all the time, trying to get me to move back and work things out. Stepdaughter even texted apologizing. He probably made her. But I don't know what to do. I love him so much, but I'm ashamed to say that I hate that girl. My son starts hyperventilating of the thought of living with her again. And what about my unborn baby? I feel sick of the thought of having 50-50 custody of being at the mercy of his half-sister when it's my husband's week. This thought makes me want to have a termination. Please tell me if there's another solution to this hell I'm living. Now for the advice. Stepdaughter is a hot mess, and your husband is in serious denial. Even seeing you with an injury sustained at the hand of his daughter, he still defended her. Now that he's finally seeing consequences of his inactions, he says there will be change. Nope. His daughter needs a lot of help, and obviously the therapy is not enough. Your son probably needs therapy, because after years of dealing with his stepsister, he is heavily traumatized if not suffering from PTSD. Your new baby is in grave danger if it ever goes near its half-sister. Makes you wonder about the twins. Stay with your parents where it is safe. Your husband has to prove it is safe in his house, and an apology is nowhere near enough from your stepdaughter. Oddly enough, she loves her twin brothers and her stepdad very much. I've seen her with them in her last birthday. She was like a whole nother stepdaughter around them. You have second-degree burns, and he says she has a kind heart and you attacked her? You got attacked by her. You didn't even touch her other than getting her away from the fire until she did that to you. There was no telling what she might do next, so you had to manhandle her into her room for you and your son's safety. She saw how she injured you, and did not relent and voluntarily go to her room. Honestly, make him an ex-husband. Press charges. Nothing will happen to her because of her age, but you need a paper trail ASAP in case you decide to keep the pregnancy so you can pursue full custody. This is not even about co-parenting. She was hurting your son out of jealousy for a long time. She already feels replaced by her mother with the twins. There is no telling what she will do if her dad has another kid. She put you in the hospital and it tells you off for how you handle the situation? There's no solution other than divorce. Everything else would be unfair to your son. If you still want the baby, remember that not every parent gets 50-50. You could insist on supervised visits only, or that he will only have the child on alternating days with his other kid. However, remember in 5 years she will be of age and can go wherever she pleases. She could even move in with him, and there would be little you could do to stop it. Restraining orders are difficult to enforce and usually time-limited. Maybe he would be open to sign away his rights for a favorable split of assets in the divorce, but that wouldn't guarantee he will never change his mind and drag you into a lengthy, costly battle. Really weigh all your options. It is heartbreaking. But are you sure you want to be tied to this man for the next 18 years? His daughter didn't get this all from her mother. Just be sure you will not come to regret it and take it out on your kid. It is hateful to be constantly reminded how they are causing their parents stress by existing or resembling the ex. I would not raise a baby with this man. He will choose his daughter, no matter how awful she is. It was a huge mistake not letting you discipline her because she has been shown that you aren't an authority figure. She physically attacked you. It is so to your son so often that he lives in fear. Don't put yourself and your son through this hell. I can't tell you whether or not you should get a procedure, but I would personally choose your mental and physical health over anything. It's unfortunate, but sometimes love isn't enough. That's exactly how I feel. If I stay with him, it's hell. If I separate and keep the baby, he will have 50% custody, and then I will live in fear. I'm not sure where you live, but if you document the physical attack, you may be able to get a restraining order so she can't be around when he has the baby, or limit the supervised visits. But it is still very early in the pregnancy. I would have a long discussion with your husband. Tell him it's gotten so bad you are considering a procedure. I hope you live in a country where you don't need his permission for that. The only solid solution for reconciliation I see is if he completely gives up custody of her. It won't help the hell beast's mental health, but it's the only way I can see you living a peaceful life with this man. He can't. Her mother and her new husband would probably throw her out. I couldn't bear it.